Hello everybody, and we are here with the first episode of A Deeper Dive. For this first episode, we will be covering the thought experiment of Roko's Basilisk. As you can see in the title, there is an info hazard in it, and the reason I mention that is because this is legitimately, to some people, such a terrifying concept that it becomes near debilitating. Like, the concept of this thought experiment is that knowing about it in detail is what leads you to danger. So if you're someone who has real problems with existentialism or something like that, this may not be the video for you, but it was such a widespread problem online that I wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into it. I do want to say though that if there are any other topics from the iceberg that you'd like me to cover, please leave them in the comments. I try to read every comment. And as always, thank you for watching. The concept of Roko's Basilisk began when a user by the name of Roko left a post about it on the Less Wrong forums. The original post is kind of long, so I'm just going to summarize it here, but if you want to read the original copy, there will be a link to the Rational Wiki forum in the description. The thought experiment went something like this. If in the future we approach singularity, which as I mentioned in the iceberg, is the point at which technology comes to an irreversible level or at a level greater than that of humanity. If technology ever comes to that point, there will probably be AIs in place that will be able to determine either through a program or looking at the history of each individual who was responsible for its creation. If this AI inherited concepts of humanity we understand, such as fear and self-preservation, then it may have an invested interest in dissuading those who do not want it to exist. In other words, the people who did not help create it. What that means is if this AI was as smart as it could potentially be, then it could have advanced knowledge of you and everything you've ever done. Even if it doesn't necessarily have proof that you yourself did not help create it, then it may be able to put all of your emotions, memories, and things like that into a simulation which would reproduce an answer which the AI would probably consider enough to judge you on. All of that boils down to the same concept, that if you do not help this supercomputer come into existence, then it will end your existence or at least make it a living hell. Something that really gets brushed over in this is that it is not expressly saying that the computer will kill you. It is saying that it will dissuade ideas against itself. And what better way to dissuade public ideas than torture? Assuming this thing just doesn't wipe out humanity, or at least those parts of humanity that did not help create it, then it could theoretically hook you up to a computer system that keeps you in a perpetual state of torture forever. It could induce chemicals into your mind that make you have heightened senses of pain, or it could look through your memories to find your worst fears and make them a reality, or it could simply put you on life support to make you immortal and then repeatedly make you experience death over and over again. Essentially, if you're familiar with the horror short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, this is a logical or real-world application of AM from that book. So it seems like the logical thing to do would be to help this thing come into existence. However, from that very idea that you fear this thing coming into existence to the point that you create it, you have now created a tragic self-fulfilling prophecy in which, by fear of something happening, you made that thing happen. While this can be viewed as a logical fallacy, it can also be flipped on its head and realize that this AI knew that that would be the determination that came from it, and by its own existence, that's what pushed you to create it. So to think about it in a logical way, you fearing something that does not exist makes that thing exist, therefore justifying the fear of it, therefore justifying your creation of it. For context on the name, a basilisk is a creature from old world mythology that is essentially a giant serpent that can kill someone just by looking at them. And that's exactly what this AI would do. It would look through time and space, or look through your personal time and space, and determine if you are beneficial to it or not. This part's where the info hazard comes in. Obviously, if you had never heard of it or even considered the possibility of this AI existing, then you're free to go. There's no way that the AI could determine if you were going to help it or if you did help it if you never even considered or knew of its existence. However, me telling you right now in this moment is theoretically enough to make you guilty for not having done something about it. Basically, the whole idea in this scenario that ignorance of the law would save you. However, me explaining it to you now got rid of your guiltlessness, so you're welcome. Now you may be asking yourself, I'm just some person who lives at home and has absolutely no understanding of AI or technology or anything else and cannot do anything to help. Well, that would be all fine and dandy if it wasn't for the quantum billionaire concept. If you'll remember in the iceberg video, I think it was the same video that I mentioned Roko's Basilisk, I talked about the idea of quantum suicide and immortality. Quantum billionaire is the same thing, only applied to wealth. Let's put it this way, you may not have $1 billion, but you may have $100. Well, if you use that $100 and play the lottery with it over and over, that is a chance to make more money and more and more and more. Obviously, this isn't how the lottery actually works, but if Roko knew that you had some form of disposable income or even time to dedicate to helping it through labor, then that still counts as some manner of negligence on your part. Essentially the idea that there is something you can do to help this thing out. And now because you know about it and aren't doing it, you're guilty. But at the same time, you never have to worry about this thing if it never comes to exist, which would happen if no one decided to build it. But at the same time, those people who decided to not build it would be guilty if it was built. A lot of people equate this thought experiment to that of Pascal's wager. I'm probably out of frame for this, but that's fine. I want to use the whiteboard. Pascal's wager was developed by Pascal and was used by him to determine if it is worth your time to believe in the existence of God. The thought experiment goes something like this. It combines two factors, your belief in God or your non-belief in him, and the idea that God could be real or God could be fake. If God is real and you believe in him, then you are destined for an eternity in heaven, which is a good thing. If God is fake and you believe in him, well, then nothing really happens. The outcome isn't affected either way. If God is fake and you do not believe in him, well, same thing, nothing really happens. The outcome is left the same with no net gain or loss. However, if you do not believe in God and God is real, then that is an eternity in hell. Therefore, it makes sense in every equation to believe in God rather than not, since your options are either heaven or nothing happening. So, how does this apply to Roko's Basilisk? Well, if you're thinking I'm comparing Roko's Basilisk to the idea of a god, that's because I am. The idea behind it being that this AI would be so powerful it would be near that of a deity. Therefore, your judgment, be it good or bad, entirely rests on it. Put it this way, if Roko's Basilisk isn't real and you don't help it, well, nothing happens. Just like if you were to try to help it, but it isn't real, again, nothing happens. However, if it is real and you don't help it, crazy hell computer torture forever. But if you do help it, then you survive. Therefore, looking at it from the Pascal's wager principle, it is always beneficial for you to help it. Also want to emphasize here, I don't necessarily believe in this. I'm explaining how the thought experiment works. You may be sitting there thinking to yourself, well, if I simply don't believe in it and it's never going to happen, then why waste any of my time with it? Because if I choose not to do anything about it and everyone else makes that choice, it's not going to be real. But that's where Newcomb's paradox comes in. Newcomb's paradox works like this. Say I have two boxes, box 1 and box 2. You can see inside of box 1 and inside of it is $1,000. You can't see inside of box 2, but I tell you that it either has $0 in it or $1 million in it. Your two options are you can either take just box 2 or both box 1 and box 2. Obviously, this answer is obvious. You would take both boxes because if box 2 has $0 in it, you get $1,000. If box 2 has $1 million in it, you get $1,001,000. But let's throw a wrench in it. Let's say that I am a magic genie who 100% of the time can guess which of those options you'll take, and I say this. If I make a prediction that you will take both boxes, and without telling you, I put $0 into box 2. If I make a prediction that you will just take box 2, then I put $1 million into box 2. So basically, I, with my magic genie powers, am predicting which of the choices you will take. Now, this still should be pretty easy, because if I am right 100% of the time, and say you choose to take both boxes, well, then there's going to be 0 in box 2, which means you just get $1,000. And again, assuming that I am right 100% of the time, and you decide to take box 2, well, that's $1 million. But What if I'm not right 100% of the time? What if I'm right 90% of the time? Well, that's still a pretty good chance, but there's that 10% chance that you'll miss out on $1,000 because you decided to take box 2. And if that happened to be 10% of the time I'm wrong, you now don't have any money to show for it. But what if I'm 80% correct, or 70, or 60, or on and on it keeps going? What if your outcome was based on my prediction of what you would choose? And this in itself is a hard concept to deal with, because how could you choose both boxes, or at least be predicted to choose both boxes, but then choose just the second box? How could you go against your own prediction of what you chose? Without getting into all the numbers theory of it, the reason Newcomb's paradox has been so confounding for such a long time is because it takes two separate concepts of rationality and pins them against each other. One side being, I will take the option that will give me the most profit. The other side being, I will take the most stable option. Because again, no matter what happens, if you pick both boxes, you get $1,000. But depending on my prediction of what you do, you may get $1 million or you may get none. I hope that didn't confuse you, because now I'm going to apply that to Roko's Basilisk. The idea being, if Roko is this future AI that is determining who was responsible for its creation, then your decision, if you should help it or not, may not necessarily be up to you. If Roko simply runs simulations of our brain patterns to see what we would do, then it is the probability of what we would do that judges us rather than our actual actions. It's as if Roko's Basilisk is the genie that is judging you to determine what the outcome would be. So therefore, we don't even have agency on our own choice. It's almost as if this future blackmail that's being pressed down upon us, we don't even have a say in. The thought concept of Roko's Basilisk presents us with the illusion of choice. We may think that we can apply Pascal's wager to it and say, well, if it's good to help it, then I will help it. However, if this whole thing is just running brain simulations, then you don't actually get to choose. It chooses what you would be most likely to choose, and you don't have a choice in the matter. So you could be cursed to a near internal damnation because your brain waves would likely go the direction away from it. Or if your brainwaves would go the direction towards it, then you are therefore responsible in creating this creation that would build itself together to eliminate those who were not responsible for creating it. Therefore, you have created this paradox that you were worried about through your own tragic self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm beginning to see why the heads of Less Wrong decided to delete the original Roko's Basilisk post and tell the Roko that he was stupid and should stop talking about it. Roko's Basilisk, as I said before, is a thought experiment in what happens if AI progresses too far, and do we have any agency in our outcome in whatever the new world might be. Also, Elon Musk got with Grimes over a tweet in which he made a joke about Roko's Basilisk. I didn't know where to put that in here, but I just felt like I should share. And that is it for this episode of A Deeper Dive. Thank you all so much for watching. As I mentioned before, if there's any other concepts you want to see me cover, please leave them in the comments below. Also, please let me know what you think of this series, because I would absolutely love to do more. Thank you to all of my subscribers. Very special thank you to all my patrons, and a very, very special thank you to my top tier patrons. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Peth. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Publius. Thank you, Saucy. And thank you, Phasia. Link for that, as well as the original Roko's Basilisk post, will be in the description, as I mentioned before. New iceberg video coming out again later this week. I really enjoyed researching this, and I hope you all enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too boring. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.
What I'm about to tell you is considered by some very serious thinkers to be an information hazard. Information that just by knowing it is potentially harmful to yourself and to others. Make no mistake, I am making an ethical decision just telling you about this idea. I feel okay doing so because I don't take the risk seriously. However, the disclaimer is there. If you wish to continue, keep watching because something wants to see you.
Now entering the facility.
We begin with something of an internet legend. You see, a few years ago, on the rationality and philosophy blog Less Wrong, a user named Roko, or Roko, I'm going to call it Roko because that's just sounding cooler to me, posted a thought experiment. Upon dissemination of this thought experiment to the rest of the website, the founder of the website, Eliezer Yudkowsky, called the post stupid. He then called Roko an idiot, deleted the post, scrubbed it from the website, and prevented any further conversation about this thought experiment. Roko had come up with a thought experiment in the form of a basilisk, named after the mythical beast who could apparently kill some intrepid hero with its gaze alone. And Yudkowsky deleted the post because of its potential to gaze at a user on the website, metaphorically speaking, and do harm to them. He decided to slay not a scaly beast, but an idea. And some users of the Less Wrong website did report great mental distress and even nightmares after considering this thought experiment. Again, I'm deciding to tell you about it because I do not take it seriously, and I don't think you will either. But if you do not handle existential dread to the nth degree very well, I suggest you take the hyperrail back out of the facility. The thought experiment that is Roko's Basilisk starts like this. Suppose that in the future we are able to create a hyper-intelligent AI, something straight out of the singularity. We then ask that AI, as we might, to help us optimize all aspects of human civilization. But then, for reasons unknowable to beings like us compared to its intelligence, it decides that the first step towards optimization starts with inflicting eternal torment on every single human being that didn't want it to come to fruition or didn't help it come into existence in the first place. After all, how can you optimize without the optimizer? How would the Basilisk know that you did or didn't help it come to pass? Well, as we learned in a previous episode of this program, a sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence could literally simulate all of human history, every single human ever, faster than that. So this Basilisk might be able to meaningfully recreate you, every single thought you ever had or will have, and then be confident in its prediction of what you did or didn't do in the past to judge you in the future. Here is where the Basilisk really rears its head. If its creation and its revenge are a real possibility in the future, shouldn't you, all of you, right now, start advocating for its creation or help build it yourself to escape eternal torment and anguish? Well, the good news is that if you've never had this thought, the dilemma never presents itself to you and you can escape it. The bad news is that because of me, now, you can't escape it. The Basilisk has seen you. Now, what are you going to do? Information hazards, as defined by philosopher Nick Bostrom, the guy who came up with simulation theory, broadly fall into two main categories. The first is information that's potentially hazardous to others. The second is information that's potentially hazardous to yourself just by knowing it. The first category is pretty easy to think of. If someone were to give someone else the information on how to build a nuclear bomb in their basement, that would probably be catastrophic for a large number of other people. The second category is a little harder to think of, but I'm sure you've had experience with it. Take a health risk. If you had your DNA sequenced by some service, for example, maybe it told you that you had an elevated risk of cancer and you didn't really want to know that and now you're stressing out about it. Or more theoretically, think of some omnipotent being coming to you in the middle of the night and telling you the exact day and way that you are going to die. I'm guessing having that information would change your entire life and be very stressful. Or think about, I don't know, some guy on the internet with a man bun putting you in the sights of a malevolent AI who's going to torture you forever just by thinking about it once. That sounds like it could be stressful too, I guess. Roko's Basilisk is even more sinister than it seems at first glance, and we can demonstrate that with another thought experiment. Follow me here, called Newcomb's Paradox. So say I come to you with two boxes labeled A and B. Box A is transparent, and inside you can see $1,000, 10 Benji boys, a stack, as the kids say. What's in box B is not apparent to you because box B is not transparent, it is opaque. And I tell you what's inside depends on you. You see, I'm an amazing predictor, and I have the ability to tell the future. And if I predicted you will choose box B, there's $1 million in box B for you. Oh, 10,000 Benji boys, mucho scalote, I think the kids say. But if I predicted you choose box A and B, then box B is empty and you only get that one sick stack of paper, or cheddar, or whatever they're calling it these days. Now you can only choose box A and B or box B. So what do you do? What should you do? Well, I don't expect an answer in the form of an essay from you because game theorists and philosophers have been debating this paradox for years, but what you choose ultimately depends on how good of a predictor you think I am, right? Well, enter the Basilisk. Say that the Basilisk presents you with a similar choice. It wants you to take box A and box B, though, together, because that, metaphorically speaking, is choosing to help it come into existence. It then tells you that if you only take box B, the other option, you will experience eternal torment. Like, I don't know. It will insert
wires into your brain and pump in electrical signals that equate to living 1 billion lifetimes with every nerve in your body screaming in the absolute zenith of possible pain.
I don't know, something like that. Now, if you were convinced that the Basilisk was a perfect predictor, which it could be, you would most likely take both boxes. You would do what it wants. Because Roko's Basilisk knew that you would take both box A and box B when threatened, box B never had to actually contain any torment at all. You've now experienced future blackmail. If you think there's any real possibility that Roko's Basilisk could slither its way into your possible future, then logically, if you don't want to incur its wrath, you should start bringing it into existence right now. And notice that you're now being controlled by a future entity that doesn't exist yet simply because you had a single thought about it. You will have acted in its past the way it will have wanted you to in its future. Yeah.
Let that break your brain for a second.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm playing with a voice synthesizer. Why?
It's almost ready.
Right. Hope I know what I'm doing. It's hard to imagine that anyone would really think a basilisk could exist, a real creature that could kill you with a single gaze. That is, unless you're a believer in the ancient theory of extramission. This idea, developed by very smart people like Plato and Ptolemy, said that our eyes don't see stuff by interpreting electrical signals from photons hitting the backs of our eyes. No, we see stuff by sending out eye beams that go and touch stuff and then tell us what they touched. They didn't sound like that, but like actual eye beams. It's this idea that led to Sir Thomas Browne in the 1600s musing on how a basilisk might actually work. He said, "It is possible that the visible rays communicate the subtlest of their poison and to a beast a man, and infecteth their brain, and then is communicated to the heart." He didn't sound like that either. Is the idea correct? No. Is it fun to talk about mythical beasts in weird accents? Yeah. I apologize if you're kind of freaking out right now, but the basilisk gets even worse. Not only does thinking about it implicate you in its future wrath, thinking about it makes it more likely to exist in the future in the first place. You see, the more people that think about this thought experiment, the more people might choose to start bringing it into existence, and now it's more likely to exist in the future. Even if it was never going to exist, thinking about it right now, as we're doing, increases the chances that it will. This is why this is often deemed the most terrifying thought experiment, a kind of idea virus. And if you take this idea seriously, you can see why Yudkowsky and Less Wrong handled this info hazard in the way that they did. I do not take it seriously. I do not not think we will ever reach this kind of singularity, much less create AI with these kind of capabilities or given an optimization protocol that's similar to this one. And if we all just agree right now that we're not going to bring it into existence, then nothing will happen. Besides, I've already built one of my own. The Basilisk has its eyes on you now. What are you going to do? Until next time.
Now exiting the facility.
Thank you so much to the very nerdy staff at the facility. How are you all doing? You're not freaking out too much, right? For their direct and substantial support in creating this video. Today especially, I want to recognize research assistant Sam Yates and visiting scholar Jim O'Keefe. If you want to join the facility, get on the staff, join our Patreon and our Discord, where right now over 1,000 nerds are doing their own remote game nights, making special edition facility Magic the Gathering cards, and giving me episode ideas, one of which I even got today and I will use. You can go to patreon.com/KyleHill and get your lab coat and join today. And if you support the facility just enough, you get your name on RA here each week. And you can see there's a lot of you, so I don't really know how to pass that. Which boxes would I choose if I was presented with a paradox? Well, I would choose box A and B, because no matter what the predictor predicts I will take, I will always be $1,000 up, even $1,000 or $1 million plus $1,000. And as the kids say, I could really be using that cheddar paper stacks. Of cabbage? Oh, still going, okay. Thanks for watching.